Hi everybody, Karen Alari here. Today I thought it would be fun to show you some ways that I use Photoshop to manipulate images. In this case, we're going to be working on sort of a fantasy image and combining three different images, four different images, and coming up with something completely different and creative. So it's a fun thing to do. The the techniques I'm going to show you are fairly simple, and they're not meant to be a finished image, photographic image, but meant to be an image that you can use to paint from. And I have my kitty here today. She's helping me with this little demonstration. So to start off, the tools that I'm going to be using, one of the tools is a tablet like this. And they're very helpful to use to be able to, it's called a Wacom tablet, W-A-C-O-M, and this is quite an old one, but it still works great. It comes with this area here that you write on using this stylus that comes with it, and it comes with a few different tips that you can put on it. And that just helps you be able to draw right on the stylus and on the tablet, and then that will draw on your screen. So it's a very helpful, useful tool that I use all the time, and I think you might enjoy using it. So today, in a previous video, I showed you some really simple things in terms of just moving and manipulating an image, a more sort of a traditional image. This time I want to go a little bit further and show you how you can pretty drastically change and be creative with that image. So here I have a photo that I took of these really crazy looking mushrooms, and when I took this photo, I thought, my gosh, that looks like it should have a little fairy on it. There should be something going on like that. And so I'm not super good in imagining things like that. So I always like to have a model to use. So the next thing I did was I got my camera on my tripod, and I took a picture of myself in the studio in kind of an interesting pose that I might be able to use. And then I thought I also want some background that's a little more interesting than this one. Than this one. And so I took some pictures of some ferns in my backyard. And then on top of that, I thought, maybe I might use this little butterfly to have a really fun difference in sizes going on. So we'll see how that all works out, and I'll show you the techniques that I would use. So first of all, here's my original image, and that's great. The first thing I want to do is make a duplicate layer. So layers are super important to you. If you don't have your layers visible, go to your window tab and turn your layers on so you can see them. I'm using Photoshop Elements here, which is a smaller version of Photoshop, and it's this is Elements 11, so it's a few years old, but it works fine for me, and it'll give you the basic concepts and the tools that you can use in this image. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a duplicate layer. So if you go to Layer and create a duplicate layer from the background, then you'll always maintain that background image. In case you mess up on this layer, you'll have that one that you can work with later. So then I'm going to go to my image that I did of myself and see if I'm going to be able to put that on one of these mushrooms. My idea is probably to put me, who I'll turn into a kind of a fairy-like creature, here on this mushroom, and then have maybe the butterfly over here. So let's see how that's going to work. I'm just trying this out, so it might not work. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my Lasso Tool here, and to use this tool you just touch your stylus. You can also use your mouse and just click, and if you do it wrong like I just did, you're going to end up with an image like this, which is bad. So just hit your escape button. What you're doing is creating a shape that's cutting out what you want to copy or move, or whatever however you're going to manipulate it. You can get super close to the image if you want to, but it's not really necessary, because we can come back and do some adjustments later but you just want to try to get as close as you can, you know, without taking forever to do it. And I'm just touching my stylus onto my tablet to create these points. Every time you touch the stylus or click your mouse, you'll be able to change direction with your line. And I'm just clicking all the way around till I get to the beginning and click till it connects. And when it connects completely, you'll get this pulsating line, and that's what you want. Now if I click over here on this select button, it puts a box around it. Now I can edit and copy that, go back to my first image, my mushroom image that I'm going to use, and then I can edit and paste. And what this does is creates a new layer with just this image on it. Now I can hold this down and drag it and change the size of it. So I can change the size however I might want until it looks like I'm about fairy sized. And hopefully I can make it look like I'm sitting on this little mushroom. It's not too bad. Maybe slightly smaller. Let's try that. Okay. Now I've got a little fairy sitting on a mushroom. Now let's go over here and get our butterfly. I'm going to use the same thing. I'm going to tap and click all the way around to get my butterfly. I don't know if this is actually a butterfly. It might even be a moth or something. So you can see you don't have to have a lot of mad skills on Photoshop to be able to use it for some really fun stuff. Click on that to select it, edit and copy. Then I'm going to go back to my image and I'm going to edit, paste. Now I want this butterfly to be about, you know, normal size for a butterfly, and I'm going to put him on here. Let's see. It looks pretty. He might be a little bit too big yet, huh? Well, but that's kind of fun having him a little bit oversized. Let's leave him about that size and say OK. Now what I want to do is, you see all this stuff that's covering up part of the mushroom that I don't like. I'm going to go to my magnifying glass here, and I'm going to get real close to this image so I can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to come over here with my eraser tool, and it's gonna erase stuff. So I'm gonna make the size pretty small. You just come down here and lower the size till it's gonna get into the spaces I want to. Now I'm just gonna erase what's around it, around the areas that I don't want to. If this needs to get a little smaller, I can get a little smaller yet. So this is just a real simple. There's other ways you can do these kind of things, masking and whatnot, but I want to just kind of keep it simple today. And again, I'm not trying to make an image that's going to be perfect and would pass as realism. I'm just trying to make an image that then I can paint from, and I can make the little adjustments that I need to as I'm painting. But I want to get the image at least close so that I understand what I'm doing, and I can go from there. So I'm trying to go around his little legs so I don't forget that he has legs on there, and I'm just erasing everything that isn't butterfly so you can get as close as you want. And you can go in here super close and get your tool really small. Come back to my eraser and then get my tool really small, and you can do little tiny adjustments like this. So whatever works for what you're trying to accomplish. He's probably got some antenna that I've already erased. And then if you want to get bigger again so that it doesn't take as long, you can just go around it like this. So you can see that this kind of a tool is really helpful. Oops, don't do that. So here and here. And I want to go over here some more. Get the rest of that out of there. Just manipulating moving the image around with those rollers on the side. So I think, you know, Photoshop can be really intimidating when you first start to use it because there's just so many tools and so many things that you can do, and it can be kind of confusing. So I've really come at it by just using the simplest of tools and to get the effects that I want without having to have a lot of knowledge or spend a lot of time learning how to do it. Okay, get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this till I just have. If you make a mistake, you can always go up to Edit, Undo, or Eraser, or you can also hold down the Control key and hit the Z key on your keyboard. So like if I erased a little bit too much of his tail there, then I can just do that in order to back up a little bit and erase the rest of it. Now if I go back to View, Fit on Screen, now I've got this little butterfly sitting there. I'm probably going to do some manipulation later with shadowing and that kind of thing, but for right now that's looking pretty good. I'm going to do the same thing on our pseudo fairy here and just okay, so another thing to remember is you notice that that didn't work. It's because I was on this layer. So you have to be sure that you have the layer selected that you want to use. And later on we'll combine these layers, but right now I'm going to keep them separate so that if I mess something up or if I want to move something, I can still do that. So I'm going to go around here, get rid of some of this background. Now if I were to paint this, I would for sure completely change the the costume, put a kind of a costume on the fairy, do something like that. But for now I just want to show you how to do this. Okay, so I'm going to go around like that, and we're going to go like that. Just try to get this background out as much as possible without spending 2 days doing this. Oh, let's shave off some of my belly. Ha ha. Okay, let's see. Around there and around here. Okay, that's good enough for now. So you can get as picky as you want, as exact as you want with that process. Okay, so View, Fit on Screen. Now I've got a little fairy and I've got a butterfly. Now I wanted to, first of all, I'm going to think about cropping this image because I want it a little bit bigger. I want the mushroom a little bit bigger, I think. And so I'm going to use my crop tool and I'm going to decide what size of a painting that I want to do with this. Maybe I'm going to make a 9 by 12. So it's going to be 12 inches wide and 9 inches tall. And then that allows me to use my crop tool and crop it to the way I want it. Now I'm going to use the rule of thirds. So I'm going to put elements that I'm interested in into the intersections of these third lines that are going across my image. And I'm going to keep adjusting my size until I get it to where my mushroom and this focal point is on this lower area, this lower thirds, and then the fairy is up here, which I think makes a pleasant composition. So let's see how that works. I'm going to do View, Fit on Screen. Okay, now I want to put some more interesting background in this. I want to try to put some of my ferns in there, I think. Let's see how that's going to work. I'm going to go back to my Lasso Tool and I'm just going to take a big bunch of these, this random greenery, kind of like this stuff back here, my rhododendron bush, Let's just take a lot of it. We can always erase what we don't want. But let's see what we can do. I'm pretty sure we won't use all this, but like that. Say, and you got to click right on, got to keep clicking until you can find the beginning of your no, it's not going to go until you close your shape here. There we go. Sometimes it fights me. Alright, so like that, edit, copy. Alright, and then we're going to go back to our image and edit, paste. And again, that's going to make a whole new layer. Now I know I'm going to want all this way smaller. Oops, wrong. I pulled the wrong one. I do this a lot. So I want to be on this layer. This is the layer that has the ferns. So that's the layer we want to be on. I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to move it around. Smaller again. And I move it. See if we like something like that. Okay, so now make it a little bigger. Yeah, because especially with the size of that mushroom, I mean that butterfly. Let's go to something like that big. Now you can see my butterflies on top and everything else is on the bottom. So what I want to do is take this layer, come up here to layers, and well, first I have to hit the check mark so that it's there, it's set. Now I can go to layer and go to arrange, and if you go there, I can take this layer with these guys on it and I can send it backward. I'm going to send it backward again until I get it to the place I want it. If I send it all the way back, it's going to go behind our background copy, which we don't want. Oh, I know what's wrong. Okay, we're going to have to bring it here. We're going to have to bring it forward one. Arrange, bring forward. We're going to have to bring it there, and now we're going to have to erase back out in order to get our rocks and our foreground back in. So I'm going to go back to my erase tool. I'm going to make it a little bigger. Now I've got to size it to where I've got to erase it. Okay, let's go small again. I'll show you how I can fix that in a second too, so we won't worry about that. So I can go right over this because I'm on this layer and all this other stuff is on another layer. So I can go right over the top of my butterfly and it's not going to hurt anything. I just want to get all this stuff, the rock, the edge of the rock, I want that all to come back. The edge of the mushroom, I just want to keep it behind the rocks. Like that, see? So that's, I can go right over the figure because the figure is on another layer till I get it back like that. So that adds something a little bit interesting. I don't really like, certainly don't like the fence back here. So I'm going to take this fence part out. Now it is, oh yeah, it's bringing that back up. Okay. So what I'm going to do here in order to now blend these edges is I'm going to use something called the clone stamp tool. So that guy's right here. And the way the clone stamp tool works is that you hold down your Alt button and you click it anywhere that you want to copy from, and then you let go and then you use your stylus or your mouse and just paint in where you want that to copy to. So you can see it's just copying what was above right down onto it, and you can Alt click again and change it. You can go really close to where your image is, or you can go really far away. It's totally up to you. So I can continue adding more of these ferns over here I can add some of this, more of this stuff here if I want to. It's just kind of totally up to me. I want to keep this here, not, okay, so you got to be careful where you're copying from, and sometimes it creates duplicate stuff that you don't really like. So let's put some more of this fern over here. It's kind of fun, huh? I have to decide if I want that there, if I'm going to have that foreground. So this, having these ferns kind of super big like that, makes it look more like, these are bigger, you know, and it's kind of, I don't know, gives it a fantasy look to me. But I really don't like this over here. I don't want my bird thing in there, and I don't like that in there. So what I'm going to do now is I basically like the placement of everything. I'm going to turn off my background layer so that I keep it and I don't lose it. And then I'm going to go to Layer, Merge Visible. And that's going to put those all on one layer. So now I can move things around. I can change things from one layer to the next. So right now I want to hold down, go back to my clone stamp, hold down Alt, and fill in more of this dirt back here by copying it from this area. See how easy that is? I love that. Okay, and then up here, I don't like this fence back here. I think I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. So I think actually what I'm going to do is create more ferns. So I'm going to go way over in here, about there, with my Alt click. And I'm just going to create more ferns back here. All I'm doing is just brushing with my stylus. You can also just use your mouse. And I'm filling all this stuff in. See, it started copying me because it, where the X was running over. And it just creates this random ferny stuff back here. So I can make all this background into ferns. And I don't have a strange transition back there. You notice how I'm moving around where I'm copying from just to get myself a variety of shapes and colors and forms, so it doesn't start repeating itself. I want to get rid of all that fence that's showing. It's kind of fun. And so obviously when I'm doing my painting, I'll be able to make more changes, but it's going to give me the start of the visual here that I want. Okay, so now I have my little fantasy scene. Now I'm saying to myself, well, this is all well and good, but I don't like the way this is dirt like this. It's not very interesting to me. I think I want it to follow along this really lush kind of look that I'm creating. So what I can do now is I can go to my brush tool, and I've just chosen, you can choose, different kinds of brushes, but I'm just choosing a regular brush. And what I'm doing is it's a kind of a soft brush. It's got soft edges to it, and you can play around with that. The important one is this opacity. So if you bring it all the way up, it's going to make a very dark line like this. Okay, and I'm going to Control Z and erase that. If I bring it down a lot, it's going to just make an almost transparent line. Okay, so what I want to do is make this area kind of green. I think I will use a light green, or what? Oh, let's do this one instead. This is called the Eyedropper tool, and you can sample the greens that are already in your image. So I can take this and choose one of these greens, and that's going to be right there. Now I can alter it a little bit. I can make it a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, a little bit greener, however I want to do it. I'm going to say OK, and then I'm going to go back to my brush tool. I'm going to keep my opacity down. It's basically like doing a wash in watercolor. And I'm going to make my size really big. Yeah, a little too big. Okay, it's jumping on me. So you can tell the size by that little circle that shows up. Now if I just lightly wash over this area, I can turn it into grass instead of having it be this kind of brown dirt. You can leave it dirt too if you want. That's totally up to you. So you can alter your colors like that. Now what I want to do is create some shadows, because both of my figures don't look like they're really sitting on there. So I'm going to go back to my eyedropper tool. I'm going to choose this area of this mushroom because it's in shadow, right? So I'm going to then go back to my paintbrush tool. I'm going to leave it pretty transparent at this point. I can always build up the color, but I want to start with it pretty transparent. Okay, I'm going to think about where the light is. And it's pretty obvious that the light was just straight overhead in this picture because of the way the only shadow was right underneath this guy like this. So I'm going to just brush right underneath our butterfly and try to create a shadow that makes sense for the butterfly just right underneath him. Okay, and I can do that the same under our fairy here. Make her kind of sit down on that a little bit more, so she's not so obviously. Okay, same thing here. Here's the shadow color under that mushroom. So let's take that and create some shadow around the foot and coming out a little bit more, and that integrates the figure. If you don't get enough shadow the first time, just go over it a few more times. Like I say, it's easier to build up the darkness by starting with a fairly transparent one instead of the other way around. So, okay, so now we have our little image of sort of this little fantasy world that we created. And you can mess around with that from there, but one thing I want to show you before we go. So say I've decided I'm going to try to make this a little more fairy-like before I even start painting. Okay, so manipulation with the painting tools is super easy. Maybe I'm going to use one of these colors that's already in here because I kind of like them. Or maybe I'm going to change them a little bit. Let's make this a little bit more of an aqua, and let's bring it into a brighter color. So I'm just choosing the color here that I want to use. Oops, jumped back. Sorry about that. Let's go back to here. Choose a color here. Make it a little more aqua. Okay. I'm going to go back to my brush tool. Now I'll probably make my size a little bit smaller. Maybe bring my opacity back up a little bit. So maybe I'm just going to fill this in and start by just taking the form and filling it in with a solid color instead of having this pattern top. Maybe she's going to be wearing a little dress instead of jean shorts, are not very fairy-like. So you can see you can just use this and draw right on your image, however you want it to turn out. And again, you don't necessarily, because you're going to be painting this later, you don't necessarily have to have it perfect, but it just gives your eye something to work with when you're painting. Maybe now I want to go a shadow color for that. So I'm going to go a little darker, I'm going to go a little cooler, a little grayer. Okay, and then I've got some shadow color to use down in here. So you can see you can really have fun with your little fantasy image. I'm going to have shadow under here, I'm thinking. And then maybe where it is lighter because the sun's coming from up above, I'm going to go a little bit warmer yet, and I'm going to go lighter. And now let's add a little bit of sunlight on the top surfaces. And a little bit less opaque in order to get this, and I'm going to have to go a little lighter. Okay, let's try that one. Anyway, I can do this for hours. I think it's so much fun, but I won't keep you. I just wanted to show you that little technique of moving things out around and manipulating them and coming up with your own little fantasy scenes that you can paint from. Okay, it was fun talking, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.